All right, so let's go ahead and get started. We'll start with a butterfly. So this posture, for some reason, anytime I teach this posture, people immediately want to do this because they've seen this in a yoga book or they've done it in another class. This is just not the stretch we're doing today. So just because I say soles of the feet together, please don't pull them in. Rather than push them out. So sometimes it's called like a diamond pose, okay? So this isn't the same as this. Even though the feet are together in both postures, the postures have a different intention. So push your feet out and then just relax your upper body forward and down. And you should begin to feel just a gentle stretch here along the back of your spine. This is what we're looking for. All right, and the exact position of your feet is going to depend on you. So, depending on your proportions of the length of your legs, the length of your torso, your flexibility. So another thing to consider is props. I don't usually use them very much when I practice, but you could put 2 blocks under your knees. You could sit on a block to tilt you forward a little. So if you're kind of up here and you feel like it's difficult for you to come forward, then sitting on a block tilt you forward a little more aggressively. A block under the forehead, okay, to support you. So remember what we're going for. Don't worry about a stretch here. That's not what we're interested in. If there is a little stretching here, that's fine, no problem, okay? But we're looking for it back here. Now I do want to point out that this stretch in the back may not be very intense. It might be a very sort of subtle feeling. And I mention that because some people, they're kind of always looking for everything to be on 10. So those people might grab their feet and do this so that they feel like they're feeling the posture. Please don't do that for your own safety's sake. Okay, please don't pull yourself aggressively down. Rather just let the upper body relax, let gravity take over, and then use support if you need it. Even if you're not really feeling much back here, just trust that that's plenty for your spine today. As long as your back is rounding, you're coming forward, even if you don't really feel much, just relax and trust that that's going to be plenty for your spine and your back. If we aggressively address our spine in this direction, then we run a relatively high risk of injuring ourselves over the long term. So pulling ourselves down for 3 or 5 minutes at a time is not a habit that we want to get into, okay? So please keep that in mind. That is not something, you can probably get away with it today, but if you do it today and it feels good, then you're probably going to do it the next time and the next time and the next time. And that is not a habit that we want to get into because we will likely create an injury sooner or later. All right, we're holding for 5 minutes. We're already halfway through. So another couple of minutes here. And we'll come out of this posture and we'll do another forward fold in a minute. All right, so I'm just gonna make one slight change, which is to take the legs out straight now, like so. Okay, and then we come forward and down nice and relaxed, and again, we're just stretching the back of the spine here. And again, you can use support, blocks under the forearms. You could put a block here for your forehead, okay? So again, just please avoid this. Again, I know it's very tempting, pull. Just relax those arms, relax the neck, relax the head. Allow the body to just come forward and down. You might see me move my head and neck around a little bit, and that's because I can feel muscles that are tense. You might say trigger points. I can sort of roll my neck, and I've been having trouble with my neck. And so this is something that I do I just find those areas of tension. And then as I just relax and hold that stretch, the tension tends to dissipate, at least to some degree. So you can try that on your own. You may not have the same effect because you may not have trigger points in your neck. But this is something my massage therapist and I have been working on for a while. It's getting much, much better, I'm happy to report. And it does get better when I do yin, forward folds like this. Just stretching out that tension is really, really helpful. So your neck, just FYI, is a part of your spine. It's not technically a part of this class. Like we could do a separate sequence for the neck if we wanted. But in a forward fold like this can be very therapeutic for the neck. All right, so we'll inhale, come on up, and then gradually make our way back onto our back. And as most of you know, I'd like you to take about 30 seconds before you do any wiggling or stretching or anything like that. Just see if you can come back, close your eyes, still your body, and just feel the spine. So, as you probably heard me say in the past, if you have a healthy spine, you probably don't feel it very often. So I'm happy to report, because I think my back has gotten much healthier recently. As I come back, I don't feel much. So that's a good sign. That means that my spine is likely pretty healthy, because I don't know, 6 months, maybe 9 months ago, I had some back issues, and I would come back out of a pose like this and I would be very sensitive. I'd feel very, very weak and vulnerable in my spine. Now that is a consequence of my spine being weak and the effect of the yin postures. So doing those yin postures is actually what helped stimulate my body to get stronger. So that's part of the reason why I no longer feel that. All right, let's bring the legs in, give them a little shake out. So here I do feel it a little bit, and that's because I don't think my spine is 100% yet. So again, this is something that I'm working on my own and with some of the body workers I work with. I highly recommend body work. I know it's difficult to afford it, or it can be, but it really is kind of a life changer. It's unfortunate that things like insurance don't often cover that, because I think stuff like getting regular acupuncture, chiropractic, massage can make the difference between having to go see the doctor at a certain point and get a surgery versus not. So I think it's that important. Of course, yoga too is a big part of that. Doing that on a regular basis also can make the difference. But I tend to take a two-pronged approach. I think we do as much as we can on our own, but there's still a place for help from others. Okay, so let's continue now. We'll move our hips over to the right edge of the mat. Take our legs out straight. Let's move that left leg to the left. We'll cross the right ankle over it. And then reaching up, we grab the right wrist with our left hand. And then start just by pulling your arm over. But then you might need to actually, I don't know if you can see me, I'm sort of wiggling, walking my head and shoulders over to the left. And now I feel a nice satisfying stretch here in the waist and in the hip there. Okay. Now, the only trouble that tends to come up for people in this posture is the shoulders, the arms. So if your arm is bothering you, you can bend the arms, you can put your arm down, you can just try different positions. If you have a shoulder injury, one thing I can recommend to begin healing it is hanging. So I know many of you are not patrons of mine on Patreon, but I've started posting videos from other people more often, because a lot of the information I get is from people who've published books, and some of them have YouTube channels, and they're scientists and they're doctors. To be honest, not that many yogis. So yoga is kind of my platform for all of this stuff. But honestly, I do a lot of research in people who are biomechanists, or they are doctors, PhDs, they're scientists, they're doing research in labs, things of that nature. So it's one thing to get it from me secondhand. I try my best to make this information digestible and understandable, but I think it can have a little bit of a different effect when you hear it from the horse's mouth. So I've started trying that as an approach to motivate people to maybe do a little more. There are also people on YouTube who take a lot of this information and they do a really good job of distilling it down. So sometimes it's not the original source, but it's someone who maybe has read the same book that I have, and they just do a wonderful job of, you know, making a video that's 3 or 6 minutes where they distill a lot of this information down into a little bit of just a, you know, a shorter video than maybe I could make, and also better production. I'm not a videographer. I'm a yoga teacher. So I only have so much time to sit there editing videos and working on sound and things like that. My little bit of content that I create already takes up hours every week. So for me, that's about all I can do right now, given the other obligations I have in my life. So anyway, I'm starting to post videos about types of different kinds of movement and things like that. And so one thing, it's either already gone up or it's going to go up on the Patreon page soon, is hanging. So I think everyone knows what a pull-up bar is, and they're pretty easy to install in a door jamb or door frame. So if you have a door that you don't close or open very often, you can hang a pull-up bar in the door frame pretty easily. They're not that expensive. And you can also get contraptions to go in your garage. If you have a garage, you can get these rather elaborate kind of home gyms with hanging as an option. But I recommend the pull-up bar because you want it to be accessible. And what I've started doing is just hanging for, say, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, just anytime. Mine's in my kitchen. So anytime I'm going in the kitchen, I try and set a timer for 30, 35, 40, 45 seconds, and I just hang there for that length of time. I'm not even doing pull-ups. That's another thing I'm working on, is the pull-up, but I'm just talking about hanging, just hanging there. And again, you might think, well, I'm not doing pull-ups, so I'm not getting any stronger. It's not having any effect. That's not true. So it's very much like yin yoga. Just stretching there, hanging, has a lot of benefits. So again, I'm going to post a video. There's several good ones I found, so I might post several of them over time. But just hanging has its own benefits. All right, let's switch sides. Now, as you come out of this, take a moment to just feel that right side and see if you can feel the impact. I certainly can. So the two sides feel very, very different. All right, let's switch over to the other side. So over to the left edge of the mat. Again, legs are straight. Now, I do want to remind everybody, because I can't see you guys on the other end there. Sometimes Michael puts his camera on, but sometimes he doesn't. Most of you never do. Anyway, make sure you're keeping your left hip down. So avoid this. If you can see, this happens all the time when I teach class. I see people, they just roll right onto their side. I've been teaching this posture for years and years and years, and I haven't really figured out a way to keep people from doing that. So let's keep that left hip near the ground. It doesn't have to touch the ground, but keep that left hip down. Just avoid rolling onto your side. Now, one of the things I've been doing lately is just kind of sharing my experience as I do the postures. And this is something I actually got from Michael joins us from the KI members group. So that's the teacher I'm studying with, Scott Killaby. And a lot of people share their own experience on there. And that's something, I'm kind of a private person, and I also just don't enjoy, a lot of people really like talking about themselves. I don't, honestly. A lot of the time I'd much rather listen to someone else and their experience, and I'm kind of naturally curious that way. And talking about myself, my own interests, my own experience,
I don't know. For me personally, I don't get that much from it. But what I've learned is other people do. So I've been trying to share a little more of my experience in the hopes that maybe it will be beneficial or help you. So some of you know my left hip has been it's been troublesome for the last few years. Now it's much, much better, but like many injuries, it kind of waxes and wanes in its intensity depending on what I'm doing and what I'm not doing. So I've been doing a lot more hiking, which I've been desperately needing. And to some degree, it's sort of aggravated the hip a little bit, and that's to be expected. So in this posture, I'm feeling that. Even though I'm trying to target up here because there's an injury, I'm feeling that injury. Now, here's the interesting part. A posture like this, where I feel that injury, can actually potentially help heal that injury. So right now, that area is being stimulated. The connective tissue is being stressed and pulled upon. And another thing I'm posting about on Patreon, videos by other people, is hormesis and hormetic stress and the benefits of getting out of your comfort zone. So again, if you are a patron, this is something you can look out for in the coming weeks. That, our bodies and our cells, so again, this goes all the way to a cellular level. Our cells do not function best when they are not challenged, when they are not stressed a little bit. And I know that might seem counterintuitive. It might seem like, well, when we give our cells everything they want, why don't they function well? Why do we have to kind of hurt them in order to make them function well? I don't have an answer. Ask God. Seriously, that's just kind of the way that it is. I'm not sure why it's that way. Why, when you give a child everything they want, why do they become a spoiled, rotten brat? Why? You would think your child says, Mommy, I want this. You give it to them. Mommy, I want that. You give it to them. Mommy, this. You give them everything. And instead of them feeling loved and feeling like, okay, I have everything I want, I'm happy, that isn't usually what happens. What usually happens is they become a rotten human being because they have no self-control. They have no ability to regulate when someone tells them no, right? They just become a horrible, we all know, rotten, spoiled brat. We've probably met people like this in our lives. So even though the parent's intention might have been, well, if I give my child everything, they're going to feel loved and they're going to be happy. But that isn't what happens. Same with our cells. If I make my body really comfy, if I'm never too hot and I'm never too cold and I'm always really well fed, then I'm going to be healthy and happy, right? Unfortunately, no. And again, this is not my opinion. This is something that I've learned from studying with my teacher, Paul Grilly. He was the first one that introduced it to me. But again, scientists like Dr. David Sinclair, many other people who talk about hormesis, this is just something we're realizing. And it's important for us humans because we are so comfortable. All right, let's go ahead and unwind from that. Come on back to neutral. Relax. Again, feel that there. So the point I was making there is my hip has been injured, so that stress of those tissues can actually help stimulate the tissues to get healthier and stronger. And that's also what like massage and chiropractic does, is you're actually creating little micro traumas, and that can actually heal, inspire the body to heal, you might say. All right, let's bring those legs in, give them a little squeeze, shake it out. A little bit of gentle movement is what we're looking for here. Okay, and then from there, hands under the hips, we'll extend those legs up, lift the head and neck. Exhale, lower the legs just before they touch. Inhale, pop them up, and exhale up to seated. That's called the hinge. Okay, so tabletop. Let's do a little bit of the bear pose. So this is just warm up, counter stretch. We're heading into back bending next. So just try some different things out. Now again, my back is feeling much, much, much better than it has in the recent past, which I'm very happy about. After some bear pose, tuck those toes, lift the hips, down dog. Let's just get the legs a bit. So today we're not so focused on the legs, but they're still there, right? And so we do want to activate them a little bit, give them a little bit of love. Okay, so let's come forward onto the belly and prop ourselves up on the elbows. That's called Sphinx, and it's a pretty basic back bend. Now the key with Sphinx is, do you feel it here? So if you do, you're good. You don't need to do anything more. If you don't, then you want to straighten your arms or prop your elbows up on something, and that's called a seal. And so I'm going to do the seal. It's a little intense, to be honest. The other week I did seal and I basically didn't feel anything. So this brings up another good point to keep in mind, which is our bodies are fluid. They're constantly changing. They literally have, they're mostly water. So they literally are fluid. But when I say fluid, I just mean they're changing. And many of us don't think of our bodies in that way. Many people think of our bodies like, I can do this posture, I can't do that posture, I have this injury, I can or can't do this or that. Now, it's for good reason. It's because for most of us, our past experience will be a very good predictor of what we can do in the future. But that's all it really is. It's just a prediction of what we can do in the future. It's not set in stone. It's not the word of God. It's not the final word on what we can and can't do. Even with healing, many people will get it in their head that, I've got this injury, I've got this chronic pain. So again, the teacher I'm studying with, Scott Killaby, he had chronic back pain for years. And doctors identified, something in his spine. They're like, this is the cause of your pain. That's not going to go away. But he questioned that, and he actually did work on his spine, working on emotional repression. So he pulled up emotions that he had been repressing since childhood, and his back pain went away. So that's just factual. So many of us might hear something like that and be like, well, that can't be true. You can't heal a physical injury by healing your emotional traumas. Well, he did it. And there are doctors like Dr. Sorno, who wrote the book Mind Over Back Pain, where he's saying essentially the same thing. That in his experience, back pain is mostly actually emotional repression. It's not caused by the physical things that you might find in the spine or the back. He's not saying that there aren't issues with your back. He's just saying that's not the cause of the pain, chronic pain. And it makes some sense if we think of the chronic pain, right? What advantage does chronic pain give to the body? It doesn't, right? If we have an injury that is painful when we do certain things, then that pain is saying, hey, you have an injury here, or don't do that thing. That actually gives an evolutionary advantage. But if I'm just sitting still and I have just a shooting pain in my spine, what advantage is there to that, biologically speaking? It's debilitating. I can't focus on anything.
It's certainly not giving me any kind of evolutionary advantage. It's a question we can ask. Do animals experience chronic pain? Have you ever seen a bird sitting in a tree just with its face scrunched up? It's like in extreme pain. It's just sitting there. Oh, God. Or a squirrel or a dog just, oh. Again, when an animal moves, you might have a dog with a injury, arthritis in its paw or its hip, and it moves and you can see it kind of limping and hurting. Again, that's different. That pain is saying, hey, you have damage in this limb. But what when it's just chronic? It's just there constantly, nonstop, pain all the time. What evolutionary advantage is there? Do animals experience that? It's an interesting question. So questioning the kind of status quo and questioning our own beliefs about what is and isn't possible, I think is a very good idea. Because even though we might think science says this or that about reality, the fact of the matter is science is constantly changing. I read an article just yesterday that proves that point. I'll share that with you in a moment. Let's go ahead and come on down. And again, as I come down, I do feel that sensitivity in my back. And again, that's an indication that I've stimulated my back and my back will be stronger in the near future as a result of that. So again, I've sort of stressed my back, and that's sending a signal to my body, hey, make the back stronger. Make his spine a little stronger because he's using it. You know, the body has limited resources, and so it's going to sort of pay attention to what you're using. And if I use my back, it's going to pay attention. It's going to make the back stronger, generally speaking. Okay, so we're going to do another posture. This one can be challenging, so I want you all to listen up. If the next option is not accessible to you, you will repeat this, Sphinx or seal, okay? So that is accessible to almost everybody. It's very rare I meet someone who can't do that at all. Next posture is a very challenging posture. You want to press back to a kneeling position. Okay, and you have many options here. Sitting on your heels, sitting between your heels, sitting on a block, okay? Knees together, usually more intense. Same with this. Sitting on your heels is usually less intense for the knees. Sitting between your heels is usually more intense for your knees, okay? So again, you have a choice. Sitting on your block, less intense. Knees together, more intense. Knees apart, less intense, okay? And then toes pointing back or toes out to the side. That's just a personal thing. Some people will be more comfortable this way. Some people can't even do this. This would be extremely painful, difficult, or dangerous for certain body types, and I can't tell you which you are. You already know, because if you see me doing this, you're probably cringing. So, for you, that would mean you tore up your knees, okay? All right, so first thing here, make sure your feet, your ankles, your knees are happy so you're not like cringing with pain. If you are cringing with pain, come back onto your belly and repeat Sphinx or seal, all right? If this feels okay and you feel stretch in the front of your thighs, you're just going to stay there. That's a very beneficial stretch. That's a quad stretch. It's related with your back. I know that might not be immediately obvious that the front of your thighs are connected to your back, but they are. If you don't feel a stretch here, then you can come back to your hands. Maybe now you feel the stretch, maybe not. If not, elbows. Again, if you start to feel the stretch, it's fine. It's okay if your knees come up a bit. Don't worry about that. And then finally, maybe you come back onto a bolster or all the way back onto your back, okay? So if you're all the way back on your back, you likely feel the stretch in the front of your thighs, but you'll also likely feel something in your low back, maybe in your tailbone region. That's your sacrum, all right?
And so this is an extremely therapeutic posture. I really can't overemphasize that enough. This is the saddle pose. Very good for your SI joint. All right, so the story I was sharing, or the point I was sharing, is there's something called a time crystal. And a time crystal was something that was theorized probably about 12 years ago by a physicist. A crystal is something, if like table salt is a crystal, right? Geodes are crystals. Crystals just occur in nature. So crystal is a formation where there's a pattern. The molecules form a pattern, a repeating pattern, and that creates a crystalline structure, what we call a crystal, okay? So as physicists theorized, what if you didn't only have a crystal in terms of three-dimensional space, but you had a crystal in time, meaning that there was a pattern that would repeat, just repeat in time, okay? So immediately a lot of physicists came out and said that's not possible because of entropy. So entropy is the idea that energy needs to be put into a system for it to keep running. So if you don't have food, if you don't have gasoline for your car, if you don't have food for your body, if you don't power your lawnmower or your food processor, it won't keep running without some kind of energy being put in there. So basically this idea of a perpetual motion machine, they basically said you can't have a time crystal because you'd have to be putting energy into the system somehow. Well, just yesterday I saw a video where there was a physicist who was explaining that they actually just created a time crystal in a quantum computer. So there you go. Some scientists immediately said, nope, can't be done, not possible, it's against the laws of physics. And then we find that, oh, well, maybe we don't know actually what is and isn't possible when it comes to something like a time crystal. So this same approach is really, really a good one to take to our own bodies, our own health, our own healing. Because modern science and medicine only know what they know, and there's a lot we don't know. There's much more we don't know than we do know. I'll put it to you that way. So I'm not saying ignore your doctor or ignore, modern science or medicine, but you might always want to mentally keep in mind that A, doctors, scientists, physicists are humans, and humans make mistakes. Humans make statements based on, again, the past experience. Nobody knows what the future is going to bring. Currently, there's a lot of talk about aliens and alien contact and, the Air Force and the military coming out and saying, yeah, we've had all these UFO encounters over the years. Well, I don't know about you, but, 10, 15 years ago, if someone was talking about UFOs, UFO encounters, all that, people would just roll their eyes and say, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. And now the U.S. military is saying, yep, actually, we've had all these encounters with these. We don't know what they are. We can't explain it. So you really want to be mindful of common knowledge, and everyone knows XYZ is true. Everyone knows you can't heal from a knee injury. Everyone knows you can't do this or that. Question that, because you might find that you can heal your body in ways that people tell you you can't. You might find that you can do things that you never believed you could do. And that's been my own personal experience again. All right, let's unwind from this one. Take your time. We'll come back onto the back and just relax. All right, let's pull those legs in, give them a little squeeze, shake it off, move around a little bit. Definitely feeling that in my back and my spine. Again, nothing alarming, nothing I'm not used to. Of course, I've done yin for a long time, but I felt much worse. So when I'm in the throes of a acute injury in my back, I sometimes can barely move. But again, given my training and experience, I know I was okay. I know I was helping myself to heal. Okay, so right knee over the left, knees down to the left. This is called twisted roots. It's spinal rotation. I recommend playing around with the head, the arm, and the leg position to find your optimal twist. All right. So potentially stretching the front of your chest, the back, the outside of the hip here. Again, the spine is being rotated, but if your spine is really healthy, probably not going to feel it. So again, when an expert gives you their opinion, and that's ultimately all an expert can give. Again, all expert advice comes from the past. It can be very valuable to learn from the past. I'm not suggesting that you ignore the past. Again, that's often just stupidity. But there's a difference between learning from the past versus thinking you actually know what will happen in the future, right? Those are two. It might be a subtle difference, but there is a difference there, right? So I can say every time I've done this in the past, this has been my experience. And I can be very kind of aware of what I'm expecting. Having said that, I can keep the door open and realize that there's no guarantee that just because that was my experience in the past, that will be my experience in the future. And so in my own life, one example of this is singing. So I never really enjoyed singing very much. When I was younger, I actually had a few like choral teachers and other people sort of encouraged me to sing. There would be moments where they're like, oh, actually you have like a really nice voice. You should sing. You should work on that. And I never felt that way. I never enjoyed it. I enjoyed music and I enjoyed playing the guitar much more. But singing was never something that really appealed to me. Fast forward many years, and when I started teaching yoga and eventually started leading retreats, I just one day sort of had the inspiration, I don't know, it just really came out of nowhere. Like, you should start doing chanting with, your groups of students on retreats and things like that. It was really just chanting. It wasn't like you should start singing. It was like you should do this practice because chanting is a yoga practice. So the inspiration just sort of came, you should start doing this chanting with your people. At first, I thought I would get someone else to sing. That's how much I wasn't interested in singing. And then pretty quickly, I realized that I was the only person who was always there. So it was really just kind of a practical matter of like, if we want to do chanting as a practice, as a regular thing, there's no guarantee anyone else is going to show up to sing. So I pretty much have to take on that responsibility. And so I sort of reluctantly did. I started working on it, working on my voice. And I got deeper and deeper into it. And I still don't feel like I have a great voice or anything like that. It's still not my favorite thing to do, but that practice I love doing with other people. And I love music too. And actually, I do have people now come up to me and compliment me on my voice, and sincerely, they're not just trying to win favor. These are random people in yoga classes. They have nothing really to gain. I sometimes never even see them again. So, again, it doesn't really matter what I think. But the point of the story is that I definitely can sing much more freely and much better than I could when I started. And I sort of had this sort of idea that I can't sing. I can't sing well. I'll never be able to sing well. And I can promise you I've been able to sing and do things that I didn't think I would be able to. So as much as I'm still learning and growing in that regard, and I am, I've been able to achieve things that I actually, in my mind, I thought, oh, you'll never be able to do that. Let's switch sides. Okay, so on this side, it's going to be the left over the right, and we'll drop the hips down to the right side. So the question is there anything in your life like that? It could be, I can't make a lot of money. I can't run my own business. I can't do this pose. I can't heal completely. I don't know. These are called self-limiting beliefs. Or about the world even. My only point really is that we really don't know. All we can really say is, this has never worked in the past, or I've never been able to do this in the past. Now, I'll say this about singing. I worked really hard at it. So I did a lot of practice, especially during the lockdown and the pandemic. I bought a course, and I would spend hours every day, ironically, not trying to strengthen my voice, but actually trying to relax the muscles around the larynx. So like so many things, singing well actually has more to do with not using the wrong muscles. I hope that makes sense. So in a way, it's more about being more effortless. What most people try and do when they try and sing well or sing high or sing loud is they just put more effort into it, and there's more and more tension, and so the throat and the airway begins to close up more and more, or they blow out their vocal cords. So again, the opposite is actually usually the way, which is you need to let go of things. You need to relax things. And this usually, almost without exception, takes practice and awareness. It takes time. And so I did spend that time and energy because, again, my view is as a yoga teacher and is I want to be the best vehicle for the teaching as I can be. And so for me, chanting, I'd like to present that in the kind of most pure, clear form as I can. If my voice is really bad, it's not to say that there isn't a place for that. There are great teachers who would chant and that they didn't have a particularly great singing voice. It just wasn't in the cards for them, or they never worked at it. I don't know. And that can be very powerful too. But for me, for my own sake, my own enjoyment, and for the experience of my students, I devoted time and energy to work on that, to try and improve that. So again, the point is that was a self-limiting belief for me. I've already sort of exceeded what I thought was possible. And in many ways, my voice is still improving. So I don't even know what the upper ceiling is. And I think that's a great place to be with things in terms of your earning capacity. in terms of your love life, right? Maybe you are single and you're like, oh, I'll never find the right person, or I always have the same problems in a relationship, or whatever it is. I think it's Einstein who said to expect different results from the same thing is the definition of insanity. So if you want different relationships, then you might need to work on yourself and how you relate. If you want to sing differently, then you might need to work on your voice and the way that you use it, right? If you want changes, it will likely require, if you want to heal, right? If you went to the doctor, you're like, I have this pain, the doctor gave you something and it didn't work, then you may need to look elsewhere for the answer. And again, the healing will probably require some work, some effort. And again, in the experience of my teacher, Scott Killaby, for him, the work ended up being emotional, not physical. And so again, this is an open mind. Where is the answer really? It's not in drugs, it's not in surgery. Tried that, didn't work. So is there another way? And the answer, at least in his case, was yes. And I tend to think this is true more often than we believe. Again, we often just we will take the word of a doctor or an expert. But again, they only know what they know. So if a doctor doesn't know about emotional repression, they're not going to talk about it. Does a doctor know everything? No. And again, I've dated a doctor, and she'll be the first one to tell you she doesn't know everything. And again, I'm not telling you to argue with your doctor. All right, let's unwind. Take your time. Let's feel that rebound. Woo, that was intense. Like I feel that in my spine now as I come out of it. So again, that's for me a good sign. That means that I addressed some weakness there. And in fact, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, maybe I'll do some more twists in the coming days, since that had such a powerful effect. And what I'll often find is if I do that, the next time there'll be less, and then less and less, until maybe one day I do the twist and I just don't really feel much of anything. And that would mean that at least for now, I've likely strengthened that area as much as possible. All right, let's bring those legs in, give them a little squeeze, shake it out. A little bit of movement. Finally got a watch, so we're right on time here. I know some of you are at work, so you might need to get right back to work. But if you have the time, set a timer for 6 minutes on your phone. Unwind onto your back. We call this a pentacle in yin yoga. So just unwind nice and comfy, close your eyes. Set the timer for 6 minutes and see if you can just let your body rest in stillness for 6 minutes.